Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CIA Learning System event today called Increase Your Chances of Passing the CIA Exam. This is an exam preparation webinar. We're happy to have you with us today. My name is Marie Lilly. I'm with the IIA, and I'll get you started before we bring our team on. If you have any questions for our presenters today, just use that Q&A feature on your consoles on the left-hand side. You can ask a question and submit that to our presenters. And you've also got a copy of today's slides and some more resources in the Resource List tab that's also on the left-hand side of your screen. So here's what we're going to be chatting about today. We're going to talk about the Certified Internal Auditor Certification Program, the CIA exam overview, exam preparation, part of the CIA's learning system. We'll cover some study tips and test-taking tips. We'll talk about some links and resources that are available for you, and if we have time at the end, we'll cover as many questions as we can. So let's get started. I'm going to ask Jonathan Jones. He's a senior manager at our IIA Global Certification Administration here at the IIA, and he's going to start off today. Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much, Marie. And good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are. Really excited to be here. This is one of my favorite events because we get to talk to individuals about passing the exam. So this is awesome. If this is your first introduction to the IIA or the CIA, then welcome. We really love the product and love connecting with you guys. So thank you for joining. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start our discussion with the CIA. You know, I feel like a huge portion of you are here to earn the CIA certification, whether it's not for career advancement or maybe even just personal desire to achieve the certification. We're here to help. And what we want to do first is speak to you about what you're joining. There are around 165,000 CIAs globally. We really like the graphic here because it shows you how distributed it is around the globe. So there's several continents, countries, and different persons that are represented here. So no matter if you're working locally or you're going to be traveling abroad, once you earn the CIA, you are very much a part of a strong fraternity that continues to grow. Here are some basic facts about the CIA. And the source of these surveys are CAEs or hiring managers. So these are the individuals who you're going to be interviewing with or who you're sending your resume to. These are the individuals who are going to be comparing you against others who maybe don't have the certification. So these are some of the stats that we got from that discussion in that survey. 84% said that they believe that the CIA added value. 70% of the CAEs preferred to hire CIAs, which was a really astronomical number. We weren't sure that the percentage would be that high in all candidness, but 70% is an extremely high number, and they're all not only aware of the CIA, but prefer to hire CIAs. And then an additional 38,000 annually for CIAs. The thing about this stat is, maybe some of you are thinking, how can you quantify it? Well, there are promotions, there's change in titles, maybe you're even changing jobs or changing organizations. The point of that stat is to show that once you earn the CIA, it does open doors and it does open opportunities for any one of those pathways and scenarios that may have been otherwise closed or much more difficult to get into. So there are definite, monetary, but as well as personal development benefits when it comes to earning your CIA. So let's just jump right into the certification process, right? How do I get started? Very simple to complete the application. You would log into your CCMS record, which is the management system that is used to manage your certification journey. There's a very visible link on the IA's website. Once you submit the application, you just submit your supporting documentation. And we'll talk a little bit about what the supporting documentation is. But once you apply into the program and you get approved, then you're eligible to test. Obviously, there's going to be some preparation. We're going to hear from our team about how to pass the exams, but this is just the steps to becoming certified. Obviously, you would pass all 3 exam parts, and you have 3 years to complete that process. Once you complete the exams, which is really the hard part, you would just verify your experience. The experience that you are required to evidence does change based on the level of education. However, no matter what your level of education is, you are able to enroll into the CIA program, provided you have met the experience requirements. And then if you look at the top of the graphic, the final kind of plateau is maintained. So once you do all the heavy lifting and the hard work, you just have to maintain your certification, and you would do that via continuing education, which most of you would probably do anyway with your jobs or your otherwise volunteer roles. So this next slide talks about the exam parts. The percentage numbers that you see next to the topics or the areas is the weighted percentage in the exam. So as you are going through the exam, and of course, as you continue your studies, you will learn more about the weighted percentage, but basically this just means that there's a certain amount of questions that you will face when you're taking the exam that refers to these domains or these components. Part 1, a lot of this may be familiar with you guys who are already practicing internal audit. Part 1, really is just about, what do you do? The fundamentals of internal audit. What is the objective? What is the role in the organization? The IPPF, the Red Book. This is really what Part 1 is focused on, and you'll see that represented in the percentage breakdown. Part 2 is more of actionable items. What is the actual work that is done on a day-to-day basis? So again, some of you may be familiar with that because you're currently practicing. For those who are, brand new, again, you look at that weighted percentage, you see that 40% of the exam is in performing the engagement. So that is a huge chunk in comparison to the other 3 domains, which are divided equally. More than 40% is spent on performing the engagement. So again, this is more actionable knowledge base that you will be tested on in Part 2. Finally, you have our Part 3, which is our recently, I won't say newly, but recently redesigned Part 3. For anyone who maybe had participated in the program before, the Part 3 had a lot of various and I don't want to say random, but it really wasn't as concise and it really wasn't as measured as the new Part 3 is. You'll see that there's only 4 domains. However, the information that you're being questioned on is very relevant in today's market. Business acumen, information security, as well as IT. I mean, these are all huge focal points of where we are at today. The world is changing almost every week. There's new technology, there's new businesses, there are new ideas that are starting to birth themselves, and there's not a lot of legislation and not a lot of oversight at the moment. So I really love what we've done with the Part 3 because it gets you prepared for that new world. So yes, you're being tested, on older concepts, but it really is getting you more familiar with where things are now and where they're going to be headed in the world of internal audit. And with that, we have reached the end of the basics of applying into the program. I am now going to turn it over to Laura, who's going to give us more information about how to prepare and eventually pass the exams.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate it, the transition, and welcome everyone. I am really excited to be here with you and to talk to you about exactly what Jonathan said, prepare, but to pass. That's the key word. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you can expect in terms of exam preparation and really what the IIA and the CIA learning system overall do to get you ready. As a CIA myself, I cannot agree more with what Jonathan just walked through with you on. The amount of respect and value that comes out of the CIA certification is significant. It really shows your commitment to the profession, and even individuals who have been in the profession for years realize the importance of really formalizing their experience. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what you can expect from the learning system. So when it comes to the learning system overall, again, a lot of the material that's in each of the CIA parts may not be completely new. I always say it's not as though it's revolutionary if you have experience in audit, but the details and the amount of information you'll learn or you'll refine, it's phenomenal. Each time I go through it, I'm an instructor myself, and every time I deliver one of these exam prep sessions, I have to say there's one more thing I pick up from either someone that's in the room with me or from the detail in the learning system. And the system really allows you to grow in your experience, grow in your knowledge, and it's a personalized study path. So let's talk about that maybe for a little bit. When it comes to the personalized study experience that's offered through the CIA learning system, it really goes to this theory of prioritizing your learning. So I'm a big fan of making sure that you focus your attention on what you need to know and dig deep and make sure you really understand it. And that's what's so great about the CIA learning system is it really creates an individualized study plan. It prioritizes the content based on your own knowledge gaps, not the common body of knowledge gaps around the world, yours, what you actually need to focus on. And that comes through in a pretest and then allows you to follow the syllabus path. So I think that that's one of the main benefits of the CIA learning system is this recognition that we're all busy professionals. And although we recognize the value and the importance of learning, maybe we don't have as much time for it as we would always like. So that prioritized piece, that customized piece to make it appropriate for us, huge value there. In addition, there are these smaller content segments that really speak to the concept of micro-learning. So again, just picture a day in the life of any auditor. Picture your own workday today. You made a sacrifice to be here to listen with this webinar, but you probably didn't have a lot of time to do so. And that's the fascinating part about the CIA learning system as well, is that it offers smaller content segments so that you can really plan your time. And it means that you don't have to spend 4, 5, 6 hours at a time learning the material. You don't even need to spend a full hour. We're talking about minutes and an estimate associated with different content segments so that you know exactly how to plan and get it right. And I'm going to tell you from experience, that's the only way I became a CIA. I would have never had time to spend full days studying while I was a busy professional. And so having and looking at the material in smaller content segments, so important to really make sure you can succeed. So take advantage of that. Also, think about the convenience. I mean, who here doesn't have more than one device in front of them right now? Probably you all do. We can't see each other. But think about the fact that you're able to bring this material with you on the go, whether it's a tablet or whether it's your smartphone, studying on the go. So whether you're a busy parent, if you're busy otherwise, traveling for work, who knows? Again, in public transport, take 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes to just review some material. Love that part of it. And then obviously, just the flexibility. Some of us really like to study on our own. Some of us like to have a little more support. So let's talk about that for a moment. when it comes to the learning option for the CIA system, there's three main paths here. So the first one is self-study. Again, we might each have a learning style that differs from the other person on the list below or above us on this attendee list. But the idea is that there's something there for us. If you're interested or you like the self-study path, you'll really like some features in the learning system. For example, key points. And it allows you to even stop and reflect on the material, even if you're reading it on your own and you don't have someone there to kind of quiz or test you. The nice thing about self-study is that the material really, based on the features I just went over, allows you to set your schedule and, again, complete this at your own pace. What about the instructor-led piece? Well, if you're looking at the instructor-led learning option, then you're probably working with someone like me or the fantastic group of instructors out there. We're individuals who wrote the CIA exam. We are certified and we are both well versed in the content, but we also understand what it feels like to prepare to pass. And we know that that's not easy. So we try to offer dynamic, engaging sessions that allow you to go through a review of the material, but at the same time share tips for studying and even tips through examples of how the material might apply. There's also colleges and universities across North America and really around the globe internationally that offer courses that might be either non-credit or for-credit courses that fall under this domain. And then finally, there's the corporate path. So the corporate path, again, might be that you're part of an organization who has a commitment to having staff certified. And so they've likely invested in some team training. Again, in this case, it might be a matter of obtaining the material for everyone so they can do this on their own through self-study, or they might actually bring someone on virtually or in-house in person to actually lead the exam prep. The nice thing about this is if you know that it's something you want your team to have, then there are volume savings if you have a larger group, so 5 or more members. And the nice thing about that one, I'll just speak from personal experience, is I've worked with some of these clients before, and it's so nice to see the progress, right? And to have that continuity going from part 1 to part 3 with the team and with the organization. So let's say you've decided to take the CIA exam. You can actually just follow this 3-step approach to make sure you're ready. First, you want to assess. Well, what does that mean? You can complete the online pretest to see where you stand. Where you stand meaning where your strengths and where your weakness is. So if you recall, I mentioned just a few moments ago that was really one of the benefits of the learning system, that ability to create that individualized study path, which of course comes from this pretest assessment. Second, you want to study. So studying is important, we know that, but it is obviously made easier because of the convenient tools such as being able to access it on your mobile device, as well as the prioritized results from your assessment. So how might you study? Well, read the material, complete a quiz, review flashcards. I always say, try to summarize it to yourself, or if anyone has a pet, talk to your pet and tell them what you just read. Sounds funny, sounds maybe even odd, but it's amazing how much that might help with your retention. And we have to have fun, right? Have to have fun as we go through this. And then finally, we have practice. So what's practice all about? It's about actually putting yourself in that exam mode. So the nice part about this is there's actually a practice exam that you can complete. But really to succeed here, you want to make sure that you're in that proper exam environment. So as a recap, under assess, step 1, what do you want to do? You want to complete that pretest. Why? Because you'll identify opportunities for growth. In other words, where do you need to dig deeper? what's going to be your plan to actually master that knowledge. For example, on the slide here, you can see the breakdown results in this example. It says that the overall score is 28%. But when you actually look at the breakdown by section, what do we see? Well, this candidate is actually quite strong compared to the other topics in control and governance. There's some room for growth for sure, but compared to the other topics, there's growth. What a difference compared to some of the other sections like proficiency and due care or fraud risk or even independence and objectivity. So this to me means that, the value here is not just getting an overall score, but knowing again where to focus your attention. So make sure that as you go through this process that you're actually taking advantage of that and you're breaking down those results and creating a plan for each of those. Next, we had study. So remember with the studying part, you're following your path. Not a surprise here then, because if we use the same candidate, remember on the last slide, this candidate had trouble with proficiency in due care and quality assurance and improvement program. Take a look at what's on their plan now. They're doing the right thing. They have proficiency in due professional care at the top of the list and quality assurance and improvement program. Pretty good, right? So they were able to use their pre-test to prioritize their learning and then set aside the time for key areas. If I would have seen governance or even controls at the top of the list here, it really wouldn't have made sense. So do you see the little button? Hopefully you can on the slide that says recommended order. That's a great way to just have that prioritization done for you, right? So actually this candidate didn't even have to manually say, yep, proficiency goes to the top of the list. By simply selecting recommended order, they knew exactly where to focus their attention. Next, so let's talk a little bit about the reading materials. The materials are fantastic. And I'm not saying this from a point of bias, okay? I have to tell you, I'm very involved with education as well as auditing, and the materials are jam-packed full of content. The amount of material that you have is phenomenal in terms of the coverage of topics. But what I really like about the material is that aside from the convenience of how to access it, it also always emphasizes application. So as you're looking at your materials, if some of you have already ordered the system, I'm not sure, take a look at these specific areas like application. What does it say it means for an auditor? Well, that's probably an important thing to note. Or take a look at the key point features that are throughout the learning system. That tells you there's something key for you to remember. Remember that as you're studying, though, in this step 2, you can manage your studying by looking at it in small, concise segments. Why do we care about that? Because it's efficient. And again, really no one, even from a retention perspective, has the ability to spend hours on end for material to be studied. So again, if you want to retain the material, and if you want to be efficient in how you study, these small segments are a huge win. What about if you're not sure about a topic after you've completed the reading? Well, here's the nice thing. You can directly link to the additional resources. Where's the link here? It's for the actual related attribute standard. And that is a benefit because the standards are really informative within themselves. And until you start digging in a bit deeper with them, I think we take them for granted. So you might be reading through the content, but you really want to make sure you get the spirit of the standard and how it should be implemented. So those links are truly beneficial. What else should be happening in this study step? Quizzes, right? How well have we really retained the material? Did we really understand what we just learned? So that's what the quizzes are really for. It allows you to apply what you've learned and is a key feature of the learning system if you're going to be successful. You've done your reading, but as you progress through your reading, complete the online quiz. So why do you want to do this? Because again, if you wait to just do the practice exam at the end, or you try to, do a whole section at once and not look at the quizzes independently based on section, it's just hard. It's hard to kind of go back and really make sure you've retained and understood what you should have. So make sure that as you're completing the quizzes, it's not just about the score, but that you're also setting aside time to interpret the feedback. Because with each quiz, you'll get the correct answer and the explanation, and you'll also get reference to where you can find more information. So I always say, it's really helpful to have a bit of a laundry list or a notepad on the side. Yes, I'm old-fashioned and I like to write some things out. So when it comes to your quiz results, maybe just create a list, whether it's electronic or my way, the notepad off to the side. Start to write a list of these topics where you're continuing to struggle with, because again, that helps you to keep refining your plan and how you can fit it into your study schedule. So keep that in mind as you go through the system. Another great tool are the flashcards and the glossary. So let's start with the glossary. The glossary in itself is really a long list of definitions. But that's important because as you read through the content, okay, you're going to come across terms that you don't know. That's normal, right? We don't want to panic. That's just normal. So I remember going through the CIA examination process, and in my prep, again, I thought, how do I not know what this is? But really think about the variety of topics. Jonathan went through the scope of the different parts in the examination. So it's not surprising that if you're not an accountant, you might not know all of the accounting terms. Or if you were not heavily involved with IT, you might not recognize some of those terms. But the nice thing is you don't panic. You come across that in the material. The first thing you should do is immediately go to the glossary and make sure you understand the definition. Don't wait until the end. Do it as you're reading it. Because if you don't understand the definition as you're reading it, you might actually miss out on really valuable content, or more importantly, the context of what you're reading. And so many of us have probably been exposed to flashcards at some point in our life. Flashcards are just a great way to actually practice whether we understand and we are able to describe the different terminology that comes up in the underlying knowledge for the CIA exam. So what about the time commitment on studying? Well, it does vary, and I think, Jonathan, you had mentioned this as well, but there was a comment around really what your background is. And you always need to understand that when you're looking at study expectations for any professional exam, we're talking about general ranges here or time commitments. It's going to vary based on your own level of familiarity and experience, but make sure that you're not taking any content for granted. So when it comes to studying for part 1, you can expect to study over 40 hours. Part 2, similar. Part 3, it's heftier. It's more than 50 hours. And why are these reasonable expectations? Again, even when I took the CIA exam, I had already been a practitioner. I was an internal auditor for a while. So the actual process of auditing wasn't new to me. But if you're like me, you're adhering to the methodology of the organization you're in, and maybe you take for granted why that methodology exists, why those policies need to be that way, why there's a certain order to how you actually audit something. And so that's something really important to keep in mind, is that when it comes to studying for the CI exam, this is not an exam we want to just try to, as we say, wing it. We need to learn the actual standards as to why we do things a certain way, even if we have been an exemplary auditor for a while. And so please expect to study 40 or more hours on part 1 or 2, and 2, and then again, more than 50 hours on Part 3. Part 3 likely attributed mostly to the accounting and the financial piece of it. For Part 1 and 2, with the exception of the IT discussions, I think that really the concentration of study comes around once again because of the understanding and the interpretation related to the standards. But again, it's going to vary. So please don't look at this slide and think, oh, you know, I think I can do it in 10 or I will need double that time. And maybe I wouldn't suggest the 10, but, you know, again, it's based on your own experience and what your background is. So here comes the practice exam now. We're not looking at an entire practice exam on the screen, but you get a little bit of a feel of what you could be asked. The idea is with step 3, remember, what are you trying to do? You're trying to actually get the feel for the exam. So I always say that whenever you're taking a practice exam, especially the CIA exam practice version, make sure that you're trying to really simulate that exam environment. The learning system has done its part. It's really trying to emulate the exam software and allows you to understand how you might flag something for review and come back. But remember that you want to be in a similar type of environment as to how you would write the exam as best as you can to make sure that you truly are trying to create that exam experience. It allows you to focus, shut off your phone, right? Have it away from you to really assess where you stand. Here are some features then on the practice exam you might want to take note of. If you notice, you have a timer on this exam. And if you look at the bottom right of the slide that you're looking at now, you'll actually see that it shows the time remaining available to you. So that's always good from a time management perspective. We have the ability to flag, so you probably see that from the image right beside the timer at the bottom there. And again, overall, you just get that feel for obviously the style of writing. So why not do a little practice, shall we? Okay, here's a practice question. The question reads, which of the following fraudulent entries is most likely to be made to conceal the theft of an asset? So here are our options. A, debit expenses and credit the asset. B, debit the asset and credit another asset account. C, debit revenue and credit the asset, or D, debit another asset account and credit the asset. I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. Okay, so if you've reflected on that question, let's think about how you actually approached it, okay? First of all, one of the things that you'll want to do with your multiple choice is try to identify key words in the question. So in this actual question stem, there were some key words here. So it says is most likely, and the other key word is the concealment, conceal the theft of an asset. So again, what is the theme here? It's about essentially how would they hide this? How would they conceal the theft? So the correct answer here is A, debiting expenses and crediting the asset. Now, again, if you read through this question too quickly, you may not have selected a response that would be directly addressing those key words. The second thing that I'll just mention at this point when it comes to multiple choice is try to anticipate what the answer is. So I'm a big fan of carefully reading the question with multiple choice, taking it slow, okay? Visually thinking about what these keywords are. So that means, you know, visually highlighting them, etc., underlining them. And then when you're actually going to select the right answer, you have to pause right before you're going to do that because you want to anticipate what would be the answer to this. If you're like me, multiple choice questions can be challenging, but that tip has served me well in the CIA exam and just in general for exams, is let me read the question, read it slow, look for keywords, pause, think about what the answer could be, and then go through the choices. It really allows me to kind of think about what it can be before I start second guessing and doubting myself with the different options. So let's talk about some other study tips here. You need to choose your study method. So for some of us, it just makes sense to maybe do it on our own, invest in the learning system and do it on our own. For others, that additional support of having an instructor-led session allows us to both invest the time, but also allows us to stay focused during that time, because we know that during those 2-3 hours, however many sessions may occur, that we're going to be focused and immersed in the material. Make sure you're realistic. Don't procrastinate. Set a plan that matches your schedule, right? Don't pick Tuesdays if Tuesdays are your busiest day of the week. Pick a time, pick the amount of time that works for you and the dates that work too. Speed won't get you anywhere, right? It really is about quality. Use the tools available, flashcards. Remember, leverage those prioritization results, that recommended order that comes from that pre-test assessment. Don't memorize. It really won't get you far. I tend to be very realistic when it comes to exam preparation and studying approaches, and memorizations will get you some answers. There's no doubt about it. But as auditors, we know life never goes as planned. And so as you need to be adaptable, you need to be able to respond to different scenarios. So it's really about understanding the principles and what's expected from us so that you can be versatile. Make sure you take advantage of the online quizzing tools so that you're ready for that computer-based test format. Remember the practice exam. Pay attention to the standards. That goes hand in hand with my comment I just mentioned with regards to memorization. Remember, if you're memorizing certain scenarios, you won't be ready to adapt. But if you understand the spirit or the principles in the IPPF, you'll become so versatile as you go to actually answer your questions on the exam. Write an audit manual. So this actually can be extremely simple. I'm a big fan of tables, keeping things pretty straightforward and concise, like most auditors like to. So I think about drawing an actual table where I would list my IPPF standards in one column, and then beside it, I would put a 1 or 2 sentence summary in my own words to describe what the purpose or the meaning of that standard is. In fact, I have to admit to you, I still have those handwritten pages hidden away in my CIA bookshelf. And I wrote them out for every part, and I can guarantee that it helped me with retention. And also consider real life examples. How does what you're reading actually relate to the work you're doing? Or more importantly, remember what I said before, that some of us adhere to a methodology at work, but we're not really sure why we do it? Why not try and actually map the standards, what the requirements are for auditors, and then actually map that and say, okay, that's the equivalent of this methodology at my work. Maybe it's the independence attestation, or maybe it's the risk assessment and control plan at the beginning of an engagement. So when it comes to actually taking the test, let's not lose sight of this, and that is all of these tips around actually answering the questions the best we can. Read the question before the details. In some cases, if there's multiple sentences, you jump to the required. So what is the actual question before you actually go through the options and read it fully? Again, that really helps you anticipate what you're expecting to see and might help you to remain in control. Look for clues. I call them exaggerator words. If you ever attend an instructor-led session with me, I always try to kind of emphasize those, but look for things like all, except, or not. If there's an exaggerator word, it's probably a bit of a hint that it might not be the correct answer. So it can help you eliminate some things there. Don't think about just your organization. Think broadly, think globally, especially for those of you that are maybe gearing up to write part 3. You know, part 3, there's a lot of material in there from an accounting and finance perspective, and yet I would say that the majority of exam writers are not going to necessarily be accountants who work directly in, or have worked, directly in a financial management role, like from a capital budgeting perspective, or even from a management accounting perspective. So it's really important for you to allow yourself to go beyond your own experience to really bring the material to life. Eliminate the obvious distractors. So that goes hand in hand with what I was saying before. Trust your first impressions. Right? Don't overanalyze. That's the handy part about thinking about your answer before you read the choices. If you're not sure, this is a great tip. Answer it anyway. Remember, you can flag it for review later. This is great from a time management perspective. It allows you to continue to progress through the exam. You have an answer, worst case scenario, if you run out of time, but you've also, once again, prioritized your review at the end of the exam if you need to go back, and if you have time to go back. So remember, budget your time and don't rush. Once you know an answer, select it, move on. Leave the time to go back. Be well rested and comfortable for the exam. That might seem like an obvious choice. The night before the exam is not the night to stay up all night to prepare. You know, I know that that's the behavior when we take exams. That's not the night to do it. You really need to be well rested. You're going to be going through several, multiple choice questions. You really need to make sure that you're ready to jump from topic to topic. You need your best, your strongest cognitive ability. And remember, you need to be comfortable. So that's why mimicking that exam environment is so important when you're doing that practice exam. So let's look at a practice question. And as you read through this practice question, I want you to think about a couple of things. One, what would be the key words here? And then secondly, what's the correct answer? So the question is, determining that engagement objectives have been met is ultimately the responsibility of the A, internal audit supervisor, B, chief audit executive, C, audit committee, or D, internal auditor. So when I look at this question, one of the key words that jumps out to me, actually the most critical one, is that word ultimately. Because when we look at that word ultimately, it is essentially emphasizing who has that overall accountability, when it comes to the audit function. It's the chief audit executive. They're ultimately responsible for all facets of the internal audit activity. And as you read through the standards and the related implementation guides in your material, you would find that, yes, that is absolutely what it is emphasizing. We might all be part of the process, but the chief audit executive ultimately bears that responsibility. And even when they delegate tasks or elements of the process that are appropriate to do so, again, they bear that responsibility. So that wraps it up for me. I wanted to give you some tips that hopefully you found helpful, and also just get you going and getting ready for your exam writing. With that, I will turn it over to Kelly.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing all of those helpful exam tips and study tips, and also to Jonathan for all the information that he was able to share about the exam process and registration system. So that's great information. So now we have the fun part of the call. We get to announce a winner. We are going to do a random drawing for one person on the call today who is going to win a free CIA online seminar, which is valued up to $1,465. So I'm going to ask Marie to please do the drawing and announce the winner.
Thank you so much. I am closing my eyes and I am spinning the attendee list on our console here. And it's going to come to a stop in a minute. Let's see who we have. Okay. We have a winner, and that person is Candace Maynard. Candace Maynard, congratulations.
Great, congratulations, Candace. We will reach out to you so you can choose which online seminar you wish to take, part 1, 2, or 3. So congrats. I also just wanted to make sure that everybody saw the discount code that's available in the middle bottom of your screen. We are offering a 20% discount for attending the webinar today off the learning system, and that can be applied to purchases of individual parts or the full kits, which is parts 1, 2, and 3. This is also on top of the membership discount. So if you're an IA member, you already receive a discount, and then that would be another 20% on top of that. So you can use the code CIA422, and that's valid until April 30th. You can use that code at learnci.com to get the 20% off the learning system if you're interested. Also, just a heads up to make sure that once you achieve your CI certification, make sure that you keep that up, as it's obviously taken a lot of hard work to get there. The CPEs required are 40 hours for practicing CIAs and 20 hours per year for non-practicing CIAs. So you can use your training resources to make sure you maintain your certificate. Also, we are going to post these slides and a copy of the recording. Give us just a couple of days, but those will be posted at this website here, learnci.com/webinar-archive. And also, if we do not get to your question today, we have had a lot of questions come in, we will either reach out to you directly or we'll be posting the answers to the questions we receive at the same site. So you can visit that, and those, again, will be posted in a couple of days. We do have a little bit of time for questions. So Marie, would you mind reading the question and we can help go through those answers?
Absolutely. And we have, take a peek here. We've got a question that has come in for, give me one second, question that's come in for Jonathan. And let me see what folks are asking here. Give me one second. Okay. The question is, I'm new to auditing and just started 3 months ago. Am I qualified to take the CIA exam?
And to answer that question simply, yes. You're definitely qualified because we want auditors of all skill levels to get the ball rolling with their certification, right? So just like we were discussing, as Laura broke down, part 1 is going to be a really good opportunity for you to sharpen your skills if you've already been in internal audit, or to learn new skills if you're brand new to it, as you described. So there are different pathways that are available for you to enroll into the CIA program. We encourage you to visit the website to see all the various pathways and methods that you can enroll into the program. But yes, you are able to take the exam even with limited experience.
Very good. Thank you. We've got a question for Kelly. And the question is, what languages is the learning system available in?
Currently, the learning system is available in English and also simplified Chinese. That is actually sold through iChina if you're interested in purchasing it in that language. Otherwise, learnci.com has the learning system available for sale in English.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And, we've got one that came in for Laura. And Laura, folks would like to know, when I'm taking the online practice quizzes, what percentage or percent of the score do you recommend I achieve to know that I'm ready to take the exam?
Sure. Good question. So the target percentage is 80%. Really, I think you should, I think it'd be great to try and strive a bit higher, maybe towards 90. But I'll tell you what I tell everyone. in every instructor-led session, and that is just make sure that when you're trying to look at that score and those results, that they aren't the result of memorizing some of the situations. So sometimes when we go through practice questions, we tend to memorize, we don't even realize it, or recall our previous experience with those questions. So just make sure that when you're aiming for your exam score on those practice scenarios, that yes, you have a target of 80%, but at the end of the day, you truly understand how you got that 80% in the underlying material.
Okay, thank you. We've got plenty of questions coming in. Jonathan, another question for you, please. And the question is, I've been an internal auditor for 5 years, but I don't have a degree. Can I still sit for the exam?
And another good question. The answer again is yes. Yes, you are able to sit for the exam. When you go to our website, which is www.biia.org, you're going to be able to see the multiple pathways. Even if you don't have a standard, obviously, like a bachelor's or master's degree, you are able to enroll into the program via real-life work experience. So, we definitely appreciate and respect the work and dedication that it takes to earn a degree, but we also feel that real-life work experience should count for something, especially in a profession such as internal auditing, whereas experience is sometimes almost the number one thing that people look for when hiring, right? So we are able to allow you into the program. If you look at the table, you'll see that 5 years is actually the minimum. If you don't have a degree, then 5 years is the minimum for you to enroll into the program. So just take a moment to familiarize yourself with that charting and with the corresponding experience requirements depending on your level of education.
Thank you. Good advice. Here's another question for Kelly, looks like. Yeah. Kelly, I heard that there are new questions that were added to the learning system. How do I access those?
Good question. Yes, we recently, just last month, released almost 400 new questions, and those were added to the current version 7 CI Learning System online software. So if you had previously purchased the version 7 materials and you still have access to the online software, you will automatically see those when you log in. They do not need to be purchased separately. So those are, yes, available for all candidates now, and those have been entered into the system.
Great, thank you. And Laura, we have another question that's come up for you about the time it takes to study. And this attendee would like to know, how much time do you recommend that I study for each part?
Sure. Good question. So again, it's going to be unique to each individual, but the recommended time is 40 or more hours for each part 1 and part 2, and then part 3, 50 or more hours. So again, just to be really clear there, part 3 is actually longer. There's more material in there, hence the increase in the recommended amount of hours. But again, 40 for the first 2, 50 for the third. It doesn't mean that you might not spend more. Again, those are just the recommended amounts.
Okay, thank you so much. And related to that, in terms of studying, looks like a question for Jonathan. Do I need to take the exam parts in a sequential order?
The answer to that would be no this time. So we wanted to offer flexibility. Again, as Laura mentioned, people study differently. And there are different skill levels, and there's different experience. So you're able to start with part 1, part 2, or part 3, and you can take them in any order that you'd like.
Okay, Very good. Appreciate that. Kelly, this has to do with purchasing materials. The question is, may I purchase the study materials before I'm qualified to sit for the exam so I can get started?
You may purchase the study materials at any time, so you do not have to wait until your application is approved. We have people who start studying first before they even go into the apply for the system or for the exam. Excuse me. So yeah, any time is just fine.
Okay, thank you. And looks like an access question, Kelly. I'll go back to you. The question is, how long is the online access valid for if I purchase the learning system?
If you purchase a full kit, which is all 3 parts, you have access for 2 years to the online software. And if you purchase a single part, there's access is included for 1 year. Although if you do need more time, we do offer the option of purchasing an extension to the software as long as you're registered for the exam.
Okay, thank you. With the past couple of years, with a lot of local sites closing, we have a question about testing centers. I think this is for Jonathan. If my testing center reopens, can I switch to take my exam at the local Pearson VUE Testing Center if I've already registered for online proctoring?
Yes. Again, going back to the flexibility, we want to try to make it as easy as possible to get to the exam testing center or to have your exam delivered for testing, so that way you guys can focus on your exam preparation and passing. If you have already booked an appointment online, you would need to reach out to our testing partner, Pearson VUE, directly. Let them know that you'd like to change to in-person. They can help you locate available times, available locations, and also assist with canceling that appointment. I believe that there is a fee that's associated with the cancellation, but you are able to make those adjustments, and vice versa. If you're scheduled to be in a testing center and you wanted to switch to online, you're able to do that as well.
Okay, good information. Thank you. We've got time for a couple of more questions. And Laura, this has to do with the type of course. And someone is asking, do you recommend that they take an instructor-led course? Do you think that will help them pass?
So yes, I do recommend that you take an instructor-led course. Again, speaking from experience, I think that one of the main benefits with the instructor-led course is that, again, you're committed to specific sessions where you'll be guided through the material. It is a pretty comprehensive coverage of each part of the learning system and each topic within. You also typically, with all of the instructors, I know that we like to do the practice questions together. And in addition to that, it's amazing what questions come up from others that are in attendance that you might benefit from as well. I know that even from a session just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we actually had breakouts and we started talking about study tips. So there's so much value that comes out of those instructor-led courses, and it really allows you to focus on the material for those 2 to 3 hours that they're scheduled.
Thank you. Good advice again. And time for one more question before we wrap up. And this, I'm going to ask Kelly about this one. Kelly, will the questions in the study materials be the same as on the exam?
They will not be the same. The CI exam is a closed exam, which means that there are no review providers that have access to the actual exam questions, but our subject matter experts at the IA write our questions based on the exam syllabus. So we also have retired exam questions in the bank that have come from other sources. So there are thousands of questions overall, but that is correct. You will not see the exact same questions as you'll see on the exam because those are not open to the public.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up now, folks, but just remember, you can always use that particular link to go and get your answers to frequently asked questions. And just a reminder on that discount code, it's CIA 422. It expires April 30th of this year, and that's 20% off on the kits or the parts. Kelly, Laura, Jonathan, thank you all so much. Folks, thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you taking that CIA exam in the very near future, and we wish you a lot of luck. Thanks all. Take care. Bye-bye.